Listen, life is short, but honestly, most of us are out here spending it like we've got an infinite supply of time. Not today. Today, we're tearing down that dangerous illusion of someday. We're pulling directly from the source material for this explainer to reveal some totally counterintuitive strategies that are going to completely shift how you view your days, your energy, and your future. Let's get right into it.
30,000. That is the average number of days a human being lives. That's the whole shebang. It's not this limitless expanse we like to imagine. It's a highly constrained, rapidly depleting resource. And when you actually visualize your entire existence as just 30,000 days, the absolute scarcity of it really jolts you awake.
To put that into perspective, if you happen to be 30 years old right now, well, 11,000 of those days, they're already gone. Poof, never coming back. So the next time you catch yourself saying, "Oh, I should really do that someday," realize that someday is a genuinely dangerous word. It tricks you into time blindness. The illusion that we have all the time in the world is literally the biggest threat to actually living it.
Section 1. The 30,000-day reality. Have you ever wondered why time just seems to speed up as we get older? Actually, there's a fascinating psychological reason for this, and it's called the Time Unit Paradox. Remember how summer just felt absolutely endless when you were a kid? That's because your brain measures time by recording new experiences. As a child, everything was brand new, so your brain was constantly hitting the record button. But as an adult, we fall into routines. You have the exact same commute, the same breakfast, the same schedule. Your brain literally skips recording these moments, which makes years just blur together like months. If you want to break this time blindness, you have to force your brain to pay attention by introducing novelty, something as simple as taking a different route to work or trying a new skill. Because time is so scarce, how we manage our priorities is absolutely crucial. Most people confuse being busy with being productive, right? We fill our days with tasks that wouldn't ever pass the deathbed test. Think about yourself at 90 years old. Are you actually going to care about that extra hour you spent replying to emails? Probably not. To fix this, highly successful people use what's called the two-list strategy. First, you write down everything you want to achieve, and then you circle the top 3. But here's the kicker. The true magic isn't those top 3. It's the rest of the list, which immediately becomes your avoid-at-all-costs list. Knowing what not to do is infinitely more valuable than knowing what to do. You have to be ruthless about eliminating the non-essential.
Section 2. Energy matters more than time.
Okay, we absolutely have to dismantle this toxic hustle culture myth of "I'll sleep when I'm dead." Without sleep, your decision-making is functionally as bad as being legally drunk. No joke. So ask yourself, would you rather have 8 highly energized, laser-focused hours or 12 draining, sluggish, miserable ones? Your health and vitality act as a life force multiplier. Every single relationship and career goal you have entirely depends on your brain working at its absolute best. And here's the dynamic I know we all recognize. You are basically 2 completely different people, morning you and evening you. Morning you wakes up, feels great, and makes these incredibly ambitious plans for the day. But evening you, that's the person who actually has to follow through, and usually they're running on a completely empty tank. The big takeaway from our source material here is simple but profound. Do not let morning you be a tyrant to evening you. You always have to account for decision fatigue as the day wears on. So how do we protect that energy? Well, first, you need to audit the things that drain you, those energy vampires, and stop relying on willpower. Willpower is just a muscle, and muscles get tired. Instead, you want to design your environment so that making the good choice is just automatic. Also, try throwing in 5-minute micro workouts to create sudden mental clarity. But honestly, the most brilliant hack here is strategic incompetence. Basically, this means being deliberately bad at non-essential tasks. Think about it. If you make sure you're terrible at something unimportant, people will eventually stop asking you to do it. It's a strategic, active choice, not laziness, and it ensures your precious energy stays fiercely protected for the things you actually do best.
Moving on to Section 3. The true cost of wealth.
Society hands us this default path: climb the corporate ladder, buy more stuff. But as we're seeing in the sources for this explainer, the smarter path is completely inverted. You should actually rent objects and buy experiences. Why? Because experiences appreciate in value over time as memories, whereas objects just degrade and collect dust. And that career ladder? It's kind of a trap. Modern careers are a lot more like jungle gyms. You move sideways, diagonally, gathering unique combinations of skills. Especially in your 20s and 30s, you really need to optimize for learning, not just a paycheck, because every new skill you pick up is essentially a lottery ticket for a future opportunity.
Which brings us to a real game changer, the concept of time affluence. Society always says, I need to make more money, but making more money often just makes you poorer in time thanks to lifestyle inflation. You know the drill. You get a bigger house, which means more maintenance, a nicer neighborhood, which suddenly means a longer commute. So you really have to ask yourself, would you rather make $100,000 working 80 grueling hours a week or $70,000 working just 30? Your true hourly rate includes everything you sacrifice. Building a margin by living below your means isn't about restriction. It's about creating the breathing room that gives you ultimate freedom.
Now, this same kind of economy extends to how we spend on people. Think of your relationships exactly like bank accounts. You can't just make a massive withdrawal, like asking for a huge favor, if you haven't been making daily deposits. Strong relationships aren't built on grand, expensive gestures anyway. They're built on the small, consistent stuff, shooting someone a random text, or remembering a tiny detail they mentioned weeks ago. And here is a totally counterintuitive point. Shared suffering actually builds stronger bonds than shared pleasure. Going through a tough challenge with someone creates a much deeper, more unbreakable connection than just going out for a fun night on the town.
Section 4. Strategic growth and quitting.
Society is constantly telling us to just stay in our lane, right? Keep your head down. But the reality is that comfort is basically career quicksand. The longer you stay in a role you've already outgrown, the harder it becomes to ever leave it. Growth inherently requires friction. If you're too comfortable, you aren't learning, and if you aren't learning, well, your career is stagnating.
The very best opportunities, they hide in what's known as the adjacent possible. Simply put, it's that sweet spot just one single step outside your current comfort zone. It's the realm of what you could know. Now, to navigate this and learn rapidly, you can use the teacher effect. If you want to master a new skill incredibly fast, turn around and teach it to someone else right away. You don't need to be an expert first. Actually, scratch that. You're better off not being an expert yet. Your recent struggles make you a far better teacher because you still remember exactly what was so confusing about the topic in the first place.
We usually try to get good at absolutely everything we touch, right? But incredibly smart people do this thing called deliberate amateurism. They intentionally stay pretty bad at certain hobbies just to keep their brains flexible and their egos in check. You can even pair this with productive procrastination. When you find yourself avoiding a big main task, take that exact avoidance energy and channel it into learning a new, totally unexpected skill. It's often where people stumble upon their biggest hidden passions.
Listen to this. Constraints aren't your enemy. They're your superpower. I mean, that hits the nail right on the head. If you give someone unlimited time or unlimited money, they usually just freeze up. But if you give them strict limits, they get wildly creative. Think about it. Shakespeare wrote his absolute greatest works locked into strict meter and rhyme. Those constraints didn't limit his genius. They forced it to just explode onto the page. Having limited resources is exactly the kind of pressure that forces you to be truly innovative.
Section 5. Design your life portfolio.
Get this, 90 seconds. That is exactly how long the chemicals that create raw emotions, like sudden anger, fear, or frustration, actually last in your body. Just a minute and a half. After that 90-second chemical wave passes, you are actively making a choice to stay mad. You can't control that first wave of emotion, sure, but you absolutely control the second. And mastering that emotional regulation, that is what earns deep trust and unlocks your true potential.
To actually design this life, you need some strong mental models in your toolkit. The map is not the territory is a great one. It reminds us that our personal perspective is always missing something. Then there's second-order thinking, which asks, okay, what happens after what happens next? So you're playing chess, not checkers. And inverse thinking asks, how am I actively creating the very problem I'm trying to solve? See, smart people don't just collect random facts, they collect patterns. After all, knowledge is knowing a tomato is a fruit, but understanding is knowing for sure not to put it in a fruit salad.
So how do you actually apply all this? Well, you have to stop being just a planner and become a tester. The planner rigidly says, I need to figure everything out perfectly before I even start, which, let's be honest, inevitably leads to total paralysis. But the tester eagerly says, I'm going to run small experiments just to see what actually works. You literally cannot think your way into the right life, you have to test your way there. Run those small experiments and use monthly reviews to catch any little problems while they're still tiny.
Which brings us to the ultimate question. You know, your habits become your days, and your days, well, they become your life. You really don't need to overhaul everything overnight. Tiny, little adjustments are what create massive results. So I want you to look back at that 30,000-day countdown we talked about earlier and ask yourself right now, what are you going to change for just 5 minutes today? Test it, refine it, and make it yours. Because the very best time to start living fully isn't someday, it's today.